The sun was slowly sinking behind the wide Arizona sky when Caleb Morgan guided his tired horse across the open mesa. The long day had left dust on his boots, sweat on his brow, and a quiet ache in his shoulders. He had been searching for a few missing cattle since early morning, and though he was used to long days, the heat had made the work heavier than usual. Even his horse, a calm and loyal mare named Willow, walked with a slower step now. Caleb gently patted her neck, whispering that they were almost done for the day. As he moved across the mesa, he noticed the land stretching far around him, golden grass waving gently in the wind, scattered rocks glowing warm in the sunset, and distant hills turning soft blue at the edges. It was peaceful here, quiet in a way that settled into a person's bones. Caleb had always liked this part of the territory. The land felt honest, open, wide enough to hold anyone's story without judgment. But tonight, he needed more than scenery. He needed water for his horse and a place to rest, even if only for a short while. His canteen was nearly empty, and Willow's breathing told him she needed a break. So when he spotted a small trail leading toward a cluster of brush and low trees, he nudged Willow in that direction, hoping to find a stream or at least a shaded spot. What he found instead made him pull gently on the reins. Below the slope stood a small homestead, simple, sturdy, and kept with care. A modest wooden cabin sat near the base of the hill, its roof catching the last gold of the sun. A corral stood nearby, its posts straight and neatly placed. A few clay pots rested near the doorway, each holding a healthy green plant. Smoke drifted softly from a chimney, thin and light, as if someone inside had only just added wood to the fire. Caleb recognized the place. Not deeply, but enough to feel a small tug of memory. He had passed by it once before, months earlier, while helping another rancher. Locals had mentioned the woman who lived there, a respected Apache widow known for her independence and strong sense of calm. Her name, he recalled, was Nalina. People spoke of her with a quiet tone, not out of fear but out of respect. She lived alone, yet was never helpless, and she carried herself with a calm strength that made others speak carefully around her. Caleb did not plan to intrude. He only hoped she might allow him to refill his water canteen. He knew better than to assume kindness from anyone without asking first, especially in such a quiet and private place. Still, he trusted that a respectful approach might open a door. He guided Willow slowly down the slope. The evening air carried the soft scent of cedarwood, and something warm, perhaps bread or stew cooking inside the cabin. A comforting smell, the kind that made a traveler think of home, even if he had none nearby. As Caleb and Willow neared the cabin, the door opened. Nalina stepped out with a steady grace, her posture tall and calm. She wore a simple woven dress and a blanket-style shawl gently draped around her shoulders. Her long, dark hair was braided neatly, and her eyes, deep and steady, held a kind of quiet watchfulness. She looked neither startled nor upset to see him. Instead, she seemed simply aware, as though she greeted the world with the same careful balance. Each day, Caleb lifted his hat politely. "Evenin, ma'am. I hope I'm not bothering you." Nalina studied him for a moment. Her gaze wasn't sharp or cold, it was thoughtful. As though she wished to understand him before she spoke, she finally gave a small nod. "You are not bothering me," she replied in a calm voice. "You look tired. Your horse too." Caleb glanced at Willow, who lowered her head toward a patch of grass. "Yes, ma'am. We've had a long day. I was hoping to find water. Just enough for us both before I ride back." "There is a small pool behind the corral," Nalina said softly. "You may use it." Then she added, "If you speak with respect, the land will treat you kindly." Her words caught Caleb's attention not because they were unusual, but because they held quiet meaning. He felt himself smile slightly. "I do try to treat land and people with respect, ma'am." She studied him again, then stepped slightly to the side, allowing him space to move toward the corral. Caleb dismounted, giving Willow a gentle stroke before leading her toward the back of the property. As he walked through the cool shade, he could feel Nalina's presence watching. Steady, cautious but not unfriendly. It made sense. A woman living alone had every right to be careful with strangers. He respected that deeply. The water pool was small but clean, and Willow dipped her muzzle eagerly into it. Caleb refilled his canteen, grateful for the coolness against his hand. For a moment he simply stood there, breathing in the calm. The air was cooler here, turning purple and soft as the sun slipped behind the horizon. A bird called somewhere in the distance, and the first stars began to show in the sky. He returned toward the cabin just as Nalina lit a small lantern near the doorway. The warm glow framed the wooden porch in a gentle light. She looked at him with the same calm expression as before. "Thank you, ma'am," Caleb said. "I appreciate your kindness." "It is not kindness," she replied simply. "It is courtesy. Travelers pass through sometimes. It is good to help when help is needed." Caleb nodded. "Still, I'm grateful." Nalina seemed to think about something for a moment. Then, as a soft gust of wind brushed past them, she spoke again. "The night will be cool," she said. "If you wish to rest for a short while before continuing, you may sit by the fire outside. I am cooking. It is simple food, but enough for one more." Caleb blinked, surprised not by the offer itself, but by the trust it represented. He was used to eating alone, used to spending nights under the open sky without company or conversation. The idea of sitting near a warm fire and sharing a meal with someone felt unexpectedly comforting. "I don't want to trouble you," he said honestly. "You will not trouble me," she answered. "Sometimes company adds peace to the evening." He smiled, then an easy, honest smile. "In that case, I'd be honored." She nodded once more and stepped to the side, allowing him near the small outdoor fire pit where a pot simmered gently. The flames flickered softly, spreading warmth into the cooling night air. Caleb sat on a smooth wooden bench beside it. The firelight danced across the ground, painting gentle shadows that moved like quiet spirits on the earth. Nalina returned with a small ladle, stirring the pot with slow, careful motions. She glanced at him occasionally, her expression curious in a calm sort of way, the way someone might watch a visitor they had not expected but did not mind. "You travel often?" she asked. "Yes, ma'am," he replied. "Work takes me from place to place. I help ranchers, guide cattle trails, fix fences, whatever is needed." She nodded. "A quiet life, but not empty." "No, ma'am," he said thoughtfully. "I meet many people, see many places. Each day is different. And today brought you here." "Yes, ma'am," he said with a soft smile. "I'm glad for it." For the first time, a very small smile touched Nalina's lips, gentle, brief, but real. It softened her expression in a way that made Caleb feel something shift quietly around them, like the land itself acknowledging a peaceful moment between strangers. She served him a bowl of warm stew, simple but rich with flavor. They ate near the fire, speaking little at first, not because of discomfort but because silence felt natural between them. The crackle of flames, the distant night breeze, and the soft glow around them made the space feel calm and safe. As the light faded and stars grew brighter, Caleb realized he felt a strange but pleasant sense of ease. Nalina, though reserved, carried a quiet strength that made her presence steady and grounding. He found himself curious about her life, not out of nosiness, but out of genuine interest. She seemed like someone with many stories, yet she shared only what she chose, in gentle pieces. When he finally stood to leave, she watched him with the same steady gaze as before. There was no suspicion now, only a calm awareness and a hint of something else, perhaps a beginning of trust. "Thank you for your hospitality," he said softly. "It meant more than you know." "You are welcome," she replied. "Travel safely, Caleb Morgan." He paused at that, knowing she had remembered his name, even though he had not spoken it that night. She must have heard it from locals when they mentioned him. It struck him gently, like a warm thought. Caleb tipped his hat and guided Willow away from the homestead, feeling the cool night settle around him. As he looked back once more, he saw Nalina standing near the firelight, her figure calm against the glowing cabin. The moment stayed with him long after he rode into the quiet night, and he could not help but wonder if fate had quietly opened a door between them, one neither had expected, yet neither had pushed away. The next morning, Caleb Morgan woke with the soft light of dawn, warming the sky above him. He had camped only a short distance from Nalina's homestead, not because he had planned it that way, but because he had felt something settle inside him after meeting her. The gentle evening at her fire had soothed the dust of many lonely miles. After he rode away, he had found a quiet spot beneath a tall cedar tree and slept peacefully, listening to the night breeze instead of the usual restless silence. When he opened his eyes, the first thing he noticed was Willow grazing calmly nearby. The second was the steady warmth in the air, a sign that the day ahead would be bright and long. He stretched his arms, dusted off his coat, and took a deep breath of the fresh morning air. A strange sense of calm settled over him again, a feeling he had not known in some time. He continued his work that morning, searching for the last missing cow. The land around him formed a long stretch of rolling hills sprinkled with sagebrush and dry grass. He rode Willow slowly, scanning the area with patient eyes. Every now and then, he thought of the night before the warm fire, the simple meal, and Nalina's steady voice telling him he did not trouble her. Those words had stayed with him like a warm ember in the chest. Hours passed before Caleb finally spotted the cow near a rocky slope, munching on a patch of shrubs. He guided it back toward his employer's ranch, completed the job, and collected his payment. But even as he finished his tasks, he found himself glancing toward the horizon, where Nalina's homestead lay. The memory of her steady gaze returned again and again, stronger than he expected. It wasn't the kind of feeling that rushed forward. It was quiet, warm, and patient, like a soft wind that nudged the edges of your thoughts until you finally noticed its presence. When the day's work was done, Caleb paused longer than usual before deciding where to ride next. There were many trails he could take north toward higher grazing land, south toward the river, or west to the small settlement where ranchers gathered on weekends. But something inside him pulled in only one direction. It wasn't duty. It wasn't curiosity in any unkind way. It was simply a sense that his steps might find more meaning if he followed them back toward the place where he had found an unexpected moment of peace. So he turned Willow toward the mesa, letting her gentle steps guide the way. As the sun dipped lower, painting the sky with soft orange light, Caleb reached the familiar slope leading to Nalina's homestead. He slowed the horse, not wanting to seem rude or intrusive. He respected her space maybe more than he respected his own sometimes. He wished only to say hello and perhaps thank her once more for the kindness she had shown. When he reached the bottom of the slope, he saw smoke rising again from the chimney, thin and peaceful. The sight made him smile lightly. It felt familiar in a way that surprised him. Nalina was outside this time, gathering herbs from a small patch near her cabin. She straightened slowly as she heard Willow's soft steps. Her eyes lifted to meet his, calm and steady as always. "You have returned," she said softly. "Yes, ma'am," Caleb replied, tipping his hat. "I hope that's all right." "It is your choice where you ride," she answered. But there was a softness in her voice, a quiet acceptance that suggested she did not mind his return. He dismounted and kept a respectful distance. The evening breeze stirred gently between them, carrying with it the scent of sage and fresh earth. After a moment, Nalina gestured toward the wooden bench near the small fire pit. "You may sit," she said. Caleb did so, feeling a warmth that did not come from the fire. She placed the herbs in a woven basket and walked toward him, her steps quiet and graceful. When she sat down across from him, there was a brief silence, but it was not uncomfortable. It felt like a shared pause, two people watching the day settle into night. "You work far from here?" she asked. He nodded. "Yes, ma'am. I travel from ranch to ranch. Each week is different. Does that life bring you peace?" she asked, tilting her head slightly. He thought about that. He had never considered the question directly. "Some days," he said slowly. "Other days, it gets lonely." Her gaze lowered slightly, thoughtful. Life can be quiet without being lonely, she said. But sometimes, it is both. Caleb found himself nodding. Her words carried a deeper meaning. He sensed she spoke from experience, not guesswork. After a quiet moment, she added, "My husband used to say that companionship is a gift, not a duty. He believed that people cross paths for reasons." Caleb listened carefully, grateful that she felt comfortable enough to speak of her past. He understood the weight of memories. "He sounds like a wise man," he said gently. "He was kind," she replied. "Kindness stays longer than most things." She looked up then, and her eyes met his with a gentle steadiness. Caleb felt something settle again inside him, a peaceful calm, like warm sunlight on cool earth. Nalina rose and stirred the pot over the fire, releasing a smooth aroma into the air. "You may eat with me again if you wish," she offered. "It is simple food." Quote, "Thank you, ma'am," Caleb said, touched by the gesture. "I'd like that." They shared a meal once more, this time with a little more conversation. Caleb spoke of his travels, the varied landscapes, the shifting seasons, the horses he had cared for. He avoided heavy stories, focusing instead on the small moments that made life interesting. A river that turned silver in the morning light, a field of flowers that surprised him in the middle of dry land, or the time Willow nudged his hat off because she wanted attention. Nalina listened with quiet interest, offering a small smile here and there, rare but warm. Her presence had a grounding effect. She spoke only when she wished to, but each word held meaning. In return, she shared pieces of her own life. She told him about the plants she grew, the herbs she gathered, and the calming teas she made from them. She spoke of her community, how she still visited family sometimes, and how they brought her news of the world outside her quiet homestead. Caleb admired her strength, not the loud kind, but the calm, steady kind that held a person upright, even in silence. She was comfortable with herself, comfortable with the land, comfortable with the slow rhythm of her days, and in her presence, Caleb felt himself slow down too. As the firelight flickered, painting soft shadows around them, Caleb found himself wanting to understand her more, not out of desire or expectation, but from a simple, honest wish to know the person who had welcomed him with quiet generosity. The night grew deeper, and stars shimmered above them like small lanterns scattered across the sky. Their conversation softened until silence took its place again, wrapping around them in a gentle hush. Caleb finally stood, knowing he should leave before the night grew too late. "Thank you again," he said quietly. "This means a lot." "You are welcome," she replied. "May your night be peaceful." He paused, uncertain for a moment, then asked softly, "Would it bother you if I visited again one day?" Her gaze stayed on him, steady and thoughtful. "Visits are not a burden when hearts are calm," she said. "If your steps bring you here again, I will not refuse them." A warm feeling spread through Caleb's chest at her words. He nodded, gently touched the brim of his hat, and guided Willow away. As he rode into the night, he carried not only the memory of her smile but also the quiet comfort of knowing that a place existed where he was not a stranger, and a person lived there who met him with a calm spirit that made the world feel a little less lonely. And though neither spoke of it directly, both knew something had shifted. Something small, gentle, and alive, like a seed finding good soil. Days turned into a gentle rhythm for Caleb Morgan. He continued his work across the open lands, riding from ranch to ranch, helping with fences, guiding cattle, or checking the hills for stray animals. But no matter where the trail led him, his thoughts kept drifting back toward the quiet homestead on the mesa. It surprised him how often the memory of that warm fire, that calm voice, and that steady gaze returned to him. He was not a man who grew attached easily, yet something about Nalina stayed with him like a soft melody that lingered long after the song had ended. Each evening, as the sun dipped low, he found himself slowing his horse, feeling the pull of the direction that led toward her home. He tried to tell himself he should not visit too often. He did not want to trouble her, or appear as someone who couldn't guide his own path. But the truth was simple and gentle. He found peace there, and peace was a rare gift in his wandering life. A few days after their second meeting, Caleb finished a long task farther west. The day had been warm and windy, and Willow was tired but in good spirits. As he rode back toward open land, the sky began to dim with soft colors, the kind of evening that seemed to hold quiet promises in its fading light. Without overthinking it, he guided Willow toward the familiar slope. When he reached the homestead, he noticed something different this time. A few woven baskets were drying on the porch, and fresh herbs were laid neatly on a cloth. The scent in the air was gentle, something earthy and comforting. Nalina stood near the corral, checking the wooden posts and adjusting a rope. She looked calm, but Caleb could sense she was concentrating on her work. She turned when she heard his approach. Her eyes met his with a steady calm. But there was also a flicker of recognition, one that felt warmer than before. "You have returned," she said softly, repeating the same words she had spoken days earlier. But this time, Caleb heard something new in her tone. It wasn't surprise. It wasn't caution. It was acceptance. "Yes, ma'am," Caleb replied with a gentle smile. "I was working near the hills today. Thought I'd stop by and say hello, if that's all right." "It is your choice," she said, but her voice held a quiet softness. "The day is calm. You may rest." He dismounted, letting Willow graze near the small patch of grass. As he walked closer, Nalina studied him carefully, as if trying to understand something she had not yet defined. After a moment she spoke again. "People in the settlement speak often," she said quietly. "Sometimes too much." Caleb paused, sensing something behind her words. "Did someone say something troubling?" "Not troubling," she said, shaking her head slightly. "Only careless. They speak of who visits whom. They assume things without knowing truth." Caleb felt a slow breath leave him. He had heard similar comments in the settlement, small, casual remarks people made with too much confidence and too little understanding. Most of the talk was harmless, but sometimes words carried shadows. "I'm sorry if my visits caused trouble," he said gently. She looked at him with a steady calm. "You did not cause trouble. Words float like loose leaves. They fall where they wish." Her calmness impressed him, but he could still feel something deeper behind her expression, a quiet worry, light but real. He waited for her to say more. She lowered her gaze for a moment, as if collecting her thoughts. Then she spoke in a voice touched with quiet history. "There are some who believe that those who visit me come only with shallow intentions," she said gently. "They have seen others treat women of my people without care in the past. They assume you are the same." Caleb's chest tightened, not with anger but with sadness and understanding. "I don't want anyone thinking that about you," he said softly. "And I don't want you thinking that about me either." Her eyes lifted to meet his again. They held depth, a quiet mixture of strength and hesitation. She studied him like someone searching for truth beneath the simple words. "You speak kindly," she said. "But kindness is easy to offer. Sincerity is harder." Caleb nodded slowly. "Yes, ma'am, I suppose that's true." A soft wind stirred between them, lifting a few strands of her braided hair. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The world around them seemed to stand still, the land quiet, the sky dimming, the fire pit unlit but waiting. And then, with a steadiness that came from years of guarding her heart, Nalina asked the question that had lived quietly in her thoughts since she heard the whispers. "Cowboy," she said softly, her voice calm but sincere, "do you desire me like the others?" The question did not come with hurt. It did not come with anger. It came with honesty, a gentle, searching honesty from a woman who had carried stories others rarely understood. Caleb felt the weight of her words, not in a heavy way, but in a thoughtful way that settled deep within him. He knew what she meant, not about desire alone, but about intention, about respect, about whether he saw her as a person with a whole world inside her, or simply as a passing moment. He took a slow breath. For the first time since he arrived, he chose not to speak immediately. Words were important here. Silence was part of the truth too. "Nalina," he said finally, his voice steady. "I don't see you the way shallow men do. I don't come here because of what others might think or say. I come because I find peace here. Because I respect you. Because I feel calm in your presence." Her expression did not change quickly. She was not a woman who believed words without thought. But her eyes softened slightly. Like a gentle curtain lifting. "You speak with care," she said quietly. "And honest," he added. She held his gaze for a long moment. The quiet between them was warm, not cold. It felt like a bridge forming slowly, step by step, carried by trust rather than assumption. "I wanted to know your heart," she said. "Not because I expect anything, but because the truth helps me walk with peace." Caleb nodded. "You deserve nothing less." A calm silence settled between them again. But unlike before, this silence felt different. It carried understanding. It carried patience. It carried the beginning of something that neither of them needed to rush. After a few moments, she gestured toward the small outdoor fire pit. "Would you like tea?" she asked gently. He smiled softly. "Yes, ma'am, I would." She prepared the tea with quiet movements, each action steady and practiced. As the water warmed over the small fire, a gentle herbal fragrance drifted through the air. They sat beside each other, not close, not distant, sharing the gentle moment. Caleb felt the shift in the air. Not dramatic, but meaningful. The question she had asked was not a barrier. It was an opening. A chance for clarity. A moment for trust to begin forming roots. They talked again softly, slowly, with honest words and simple thoughts. Nothing rushed. Nothing heavy. Just two people sharing a calm evening, understanding each other a little more with every passing moment. When the stars appeared above them and the night deepened, Caleb stood to leave. This time, there was no uncertainty between them, no hidden worry. Her eyes followed him with quiet, calm. "Thank you for your honesty," she said. "Thank you for trusting it," he replied. As he rode into the night, he carried with him a gentle warmth, a deeper connection than before. One built not on expectation, but on truth. And Nalina watched him go with a steady gaze, knowing that something important had been spoken between them, something honest, gentle, and new. After the quiet but honest conversation in the soft light of evening, something changed inside Caleb Morgan. It wasn't a loud change or a sudden shift. It was gentle and steady, like a slow sunrise warming the land. He carried Nalina's words with him as he rode across the wide Arizona territory the next morning. Her question had not hurt him. It had opened a door between them, one made of honesty and understanding. Caleb knew trust was something that grew from actions, not promises. Words were important, yes, but a person's daily steps told the truth far more clearly. And so, over the next several days, he allowed his actions to speak with quiet strength. He started by doing his usual work with more focus, wanting his mind clear when he visited her again. But even as he worked, he watched the sky, the land, and the direction that eventually led toward her homestead. He didn't plan his visits too close together, not wanting to crowd her or appear needy. He respected her space and her calm, steady way of living. Yet he returned when the time felt right, always with sincerity in his heart and no expectations in his mind. One afternoon, Caleb rode near her homestead and noticed something unusual. A few fence posts near her corral were leaning, as if wind or weather had weakened them. It was nothing dangerous, but it was the sort of thing that could grow into a larger problem with time. He paused on the hillside, thinking. He did not want to seem like someone who assumed she needed help. Nalina was strong, capable, and independent. But offering help was not the same as assuming she could not take care of her home. It was simply kindness. So he rode closer, leading Willow slowly down the slope. As he approached, Nalina stepped outside with a basket in her hands. She noticed him right away, and her expression held that familiar calmness. But this time, there was also a small, gentle warmth in her eyes, like a peace she had allowed to settle there. "You are here again," she said softly. "Yes, ma'am," he replied with an easy smile. "I was riding near and thought I'd say hello." She nodded, accepting his presence without hesitation. Caleb took a slow breath, then tilted his head toward the fence. "I noticed your corral could use a little fixing," he said in a respectful tone. "If you like, I can help repair it. Only if you wish." Nalina looked at the fence, then at him. For a moment, she said nothing, and Caleb waited patiently. When she finally nodded, it was gentle and trusting. "Thank you," she said quietly. "Help is welcomed when given with care." Her words warmed him more than the afternoon sun. Together, they walked toward the corral. Willow grazed nearby, and the land around them felt calm and steady. Caleb checked the posts, tested the wood, and explained calmly what needed to be done. Nalina listened, not in a way that suggested she needed instruction, but in a way that showed she respected his knowledge as much as he respected her space. She even helped him carry a few replacement posts from a small shed. They worked side by side, their movements quiet and smooth. There were no rushed moments, no awkward silences, only the natural rhythm of two people who had begun to understand each other. At one point, Caleb noticed her watching him with thoughtful eyes. "You work carefully," she said. "Careful work lasts longer," he replied, smiling. She nodded. "My husband used to say that." Caleb paused gently, sensing the weight of her memory. "He sounds like someone who took pride in what he did." "He did," she said. "He believed that small tasks, when done with patience, protect a home." Caleb nodded slowly, feeling honored that she shared that piece of her past with him. They spent much of the afternoon fixing the fence. The sun moved across the sky, the breeze carried warm dust through the air, and the long shadows grew slowly across the ground. Every moment felt peaceful not because they spoke often, but because their silence was shared and comforting. When the work was finished, the corral stood straight and strong again. Caleb stepped back, brushing dust from his hands. "That should hold for a long while," he said gently. Nalina studied the repaired posts, then looked at him with gratitude clear in her eyes. "Thank you," she said. "Your help came from a sincere place. I see that." Her words meant more to him than anything else that day. To show her appreciation, she invited him to stay for the evening meal. He accepted with quiet respect. They sat near the outdoor fire pit once more, sipping a warm tea she prepared. The fire flickered softly, casting orange light on their faces. During the meal, their conversation flowed more easily than before. Caleb shared gentle stories from his past, his childhood on a small ranch, his brother teaching him to rope, his mother singing softly while cooking. Nothing heavy, nothing sad, just the tender memories that shape a person. In return, Nalina spoke of small joys in her life, her favorite time of year, the soft rains that came in spring, the songs her grandmother used to teach her as a child. She told him about her herbs, her daily routines, and the peace she found in simple tasks. As they talked, Caleb noticed something subtle but meaningful. She was beginning to trust him. Not in a sudden way, but in a slow, gentle unfolding like a flower opening toward morning light. At one point, after a quiet pause, she said softly, "I wondered if you would come back after my question." Caleb looked at her, understanding the honesty behind her words. "I came back because your question mattered to me," he said. "And because you deserved a true answer." She lowered her gaze, a thoughtful softness in her expression. "Many people avoid truth, but you did not." "I didn't want to," he said. "Truth makes the path ahead clear." She lifted her eyes, meeting his with a steady calm. "And what path do you see ahead?" she asked gently. Caleb did not rush. He took a slow breath and spoke softly. "I see a path where I continue to visit, if you allow it. A path where we learn more about each other slowly, at a pace you are comfortable with. A path built on respect." Nalina held his gaze for a long moment. Then she nodded once, the gesture small but full of meaning. "That is a good path," she said. They did not need to say more after that. The night grew deeper, the stars brighter, and the air cooler. They sat quietly, warmed by the fire and by something deeper, an understanding forming gently between them. When Caleb finally stood to leave, a calm silence settled around them. She watched him with a peaceful expression, no longer guarded, no longer unsure. "You have a good heart, Caleb Morgan," she said softly. He felt warmth spread through him at her words. I hope to keep proving that, he replied. You already have, she said. As he rode away under the blanket of stars, he felt lighter than he had in years. Each visit, each conversation, each shared moment had woven a quiet bond between them, gentle, steady, and growing naturally with time. And in her homestead, Nalina watched his figure fade into the distance, her heart resting in a calm she had not felt since long before she lost her husband. She knew trust came slowly, but she also knew that something honest and peaceful had begun to bloom. Not rushed, not uncertain, simply real. Spring came slowly across the Arizona land, bringing softer winds and a gentle brightness that touched every hill and field. The days grew warmer, the nights turned mild, and small flowers began to appear in places where the soil had been quiet all winter. Caleb Morgan felt the shift in the seasons, the same way he felt the shift inside his own heart, steady, natural, and quietly hopeful. His visits to Nalina had become a calm part of his life. He never came too often, never pushed too close, never asked for more than she felt comfortable giving. But each time he rode toward her homestead, he felt a warm peace waiting for him, like a place his spirit could rest from the long roads and endless travels. Nalina welcomed him each time with the same quiet grace she always carried. At first, her smiles were small and rare, like soft ripples on still water. But as the weeks passed, they came more easily, touched with warmth and familiarity. She began to speak more freely, too, sharing small joys from her days, new plants growing in her garden, the gentle rains that came for an hour in the morning, the birds that nested near her porch. Her voice was calm, but her words held life. Caleb listened to everything she said, not out of politeness but out of sincere interest. He found himself remembering every detail she shared, carrying her words with him like treasured keepsakes. Her presence was gentle, but it carried strength. She had lived through loss, through change, through the quiet demands of a life lived mostly alone. Yet she stood steady, with a heart that still held room for calm, for kindness, for careful trust. The more time he spent near her, the more he admired her. Not in a dramatic way, not in a rushed or breathless manner. It was a feeling like the slow rising of dawn, the kind that warms a person from the inside out. One evening, Caleb finished a long job helping a rancher mend his cattle pens. He was tired, but not in a burdensome way. The sky was glowing with the soft colors of sunset when he found himself guiding Willow toward Nalina's home once again. He did not question his steps. They felt natural and honest. When he arrived, he saw her tending to a small patch of green plants near her cabin. She looked up as he approached, and a gentle smile softened her face. You came just as the day is ending, she said. Yes, ma'am, Caleb replied warmly. The sky looked too peaceful to waste. Thought I'd visit, if it's all right. It is all right, she said softly. Peace is better when shared. Those words rested warmly in his heart. They sat near the small fire outside, just as they had many evenings before. She poured him a cup of her herbal tea, and the warm scent drifted through the air. The fire crackled softly, and the sky above them slowly darkened, filling with bright, gentle stars. After some quiet moments, Caleb spoke. I'll be moving cattle north soon, he said carefully. Work's taking me across a long trail for a few weeks. I'll be gone for a while. Nalina didn't react quickly. She was quiet for a long moment, her eyes steady on the fire. When she finally looked at him, there was something thoughtful in her gaze, something calm, but touched with a soft sadness. I see, she said gently. The land asks much from those who travel. Yes, ma'am, Caleb said, but I wanted you to know. I didn't want to vanish without saying it. She nodded slowly. That is thoughtful of you. Caleb hesitated for a moment, then continued. When I come back, if you're comfortable with it, I'd like to visit again. Only if you wish. Nalina looked at him for a long moment, her expression softening. Your visits bring calm, she said. Calm is welcome in my home. He felt warmth spread through him. I'm glad, he said. For a while they simply watched the fire, listening to the quiet crackle of the wood and the gentle shifting of the wind. Then, slowly, almost shyly, Nalina spoke again. When people lose someone they love, she said softly, the world becomes quiet in a different way. Not peaceful, but hollow. I lived in that quiet for a long time. Caleb listened, giving her his full attention. But the quiet changed when you came, she continued. Not loudly, not suddenly. It changed in small ways. Like soft rain touching dry soil. Her words touched something deep in him. He spoke carefully. I didn't come to replace anything or take space that isn't mine. I came because your presence gives me peace. I feel at ease here, in a way I haven't felt in a long while. She lowered her gaze, then lifted it again, meeting his eyes with gentle strength. Peace is a gift, she said. Not everyone brings it. For a long moment they held each other's gaze. There was no rush, no pressure, no unspoken demands. Only understanding, quiet, honest, and real. Caleb took a slow breath. When I'm done with the cattle drive, I'll come back. And whatever path we build, I want it to be one we choose together. Nalina considered his words thoughtfully. She had always been careful with her heart, always measured with her steps. And Caleb respected that deeply. Finally, she nodded. We will see what the seasons bring, she said softly. But I will be here. The simple truth of that eased something inside him. They talked a little more about the birds returning from winter, about the way the sky changed color in spring, about simple things that felt warm and safe. The night grew darker, but their conversation stayed gentle, without heavy shadows. When it was time for Caleb to leave, he stood slowly, brushing dust from his coat. Nalina rose as well. The firelight touched her face, and her expression held a peaceful kind of openness, quiet, but unmistakably present. Take care on your journey, she said. I will, he replied. And I'll think of this place while I'm gone. You will return, she said, not as a question, but with calm certainty. I will, he answered softly. Before he mounted Willow, he looked back at her. She stood with her shawl wrapped around her shoulders, watching him with steady eyes. The soft wind brushed through the grass, and the stars above seemed to shimmer just a little brighter. He lifted his hat with a gentle smile. Good night, Nalina. Good night, Caleb Morgan, she said. He rode away slowly, letting the night settle around him like a quiet blanket. The road ahead was long, but his heart felt light. He carried her words with him, her trust, her gentle honesty. Each step Willow took felt like a steady drumbeat of hope. Back at the homestead, Nalina watched his figure fade into the darkness. She felt a calmness inside her, not the lonely quiet she had known in the past, but a peaceful, expectant kind. She knew life did not always move in straight lines, but she also knew that sincere steps were worth following. And when the dawn would rise after many days, she trusted that the path between them would still be open, guided by honesty, built with respect, and strengthened by every gentle moment they had shared. The story of Caleb and Nalina did not end with promises or dramatic declarations. It grew slowly, quietly, like the spring itself, soft, patient, and full of new beginnings. Their hearts had chosen the same horizon, and that was enough.